Just will work. It says live, which means it might actually be happening. So, hello everyone. Welcome. I'm Arnold Mungioli, and this is Grateful, Ready, Open, Willing. And I am joined this evening by three of my favorite humans, people I have known and loved for many years, decades, in fact, in alphabetical order. That would be Inga Ballard and Tomé Cousin and Maija Garcia. And I have asked these three amazing people here tonight to talk about something that I have grown very curious about. I have no expertise, but I am curious, and that is called Ubuntu. And it is an African concept. I guess it's considered a South African concept because when Nelson Mandela came to power in the 90s and it was the end of apartheid, it was something that was, I think, maybe taken from the Zimbabwe culture and adapted as a philosophy for the country. And our country is in an odd place. So I thought this concept of community and being there, I guess the actual translation is something to the effect of I am because you are. This idea of community has been something I've always championed and I've always been passionate about, and I am perplexed by in how we move forward, firstly as a theater community, then as a nation, and then as a world. So we're going to try to take this half hour and talk about these things. Before I open it up and we begin, just a few housekeeping things. The first is we are broadcasting to Facebook Live through StreamYard, and what that means is we do not see your name. You come up as Facebook user unless you are a registered StreamYard person. So if you wish to comment or ask a question and wish us to know who you are, then please type your name as the first part of the question you type. So then we'll know it's you. Otherwise, we will just see you as Facebook user and welcome you just the same. Ubuntu. Beyond that, we do all of this to help the Actors Fund in whatever way possible. Everybody who's been involved with Grateful, Ready, Open, Willing has very graciously donated their time, as these artists tonight are doing, to share ideas and concepts with you so that we as a theater community can move forward past this pandemic and into all that we can be. We do ask that if you feel so inclined to do something or contribute or help, Facebook doesn't let me put it on the group Grateful, Ready, Open, Willing, but if you go to the Facebook page Grateful, Ready, Open, Willing, there's a little block there to donate to the Actors Fund. I also have no ego about it. If you want to give $5 or $10 tonight to say, hey, that was a great talk, thank you, just go to the Actors Fund and give them the money. Somebody needs it, and you know, $5 from every person adds up, and we're all trying to make our way through this. So that's the big ask. I threw it out there right at the beginning. And now let's get to talking, because these folks are way more interesting than I am. So the first thing I'd like to do is just ask you all about this idea of Ubuntu. And I want to say that people here are at different levels of experience in dealing with this concept, whether it's formally as a philosophy or a practice, or whether it's just in the kindness and community and the way they live their lives, which I know all of these people well enough to say that all of them do that. So people will be talking from different perspectives, and I perhaps will be the most naive about this concept. So don't anybody out there feel bad if there's something you don't know, because I probably know less, but I'm very curious and very eager to learn. So the first thing I would ask everybody is, can you tell us a little bit about Ubuntu in your life, what it means to you, what your experience is of it? The bit of research I've done shows that it means different things to different people in African society. So I'm sure it may mean slightly different things to each of you. And I would love to hear a little bit about you and your experience of this concept in your life, in your work, in the world. And who would like to go first?
I think when you were talking about it, Arnold, and you said you, when you were doing your research about it, I know I discovered it through the Truth and Reconciliation Council, which was put together after apartheid was abolished, and between Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu, Ubuntu was part of this. I am because we are, or I am because you are. And I love the definition of it, because I think in terms of relating that back to us as artists, isn't that what we do in terms of our theatrical community? You know, I kind of look at it from that perspective, but that was the first time I had pretty much heard about it. And I am not someone who is well versed on it, but I love the definition and I love the concept of knowing that we are all connected because of this. And the use of compassion, the use of being compassionate and lifting up humanity through compassion, which is another part of Ubuntu as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just going to pick up what Inga said there. I was first introduced to it as a young teenager. So we're talking like 1970, 71. Very quickly, I went to an experimental school in Baltimore, Maryland, and it was called the Ralph Young School for Boys, and we were called Negro Boys at the time. And so the Dr. Ralph Young was a very unique human being. He was the spiritual advisor and the physical physician to both Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. And so so the school was like an indoctrination of political thought for young boys. And so Ubuntu was the solver. So whenever we were presented with challenges, how we would be out in the world, we were always to raise our hand and say Ubuntu. So we had to like figure it out. We were always asking for help, how to figure out and negotiate the piece of it, you know, how to bring some empathy into a really dangerous situation that we could find ourselves in. And so it just kind of stayed in my life. And it has been there. And then I was reminded of it many, many years later by Andre de Shields. You know, because he's also from Baltimore and he also knew of the school. And so it just kind of tied it back together. So I just went, oh, right, I had forgotten about the use of the actual word, even though I had been living it for quite some time. So I consider myself to be like a living embodiment of it. I try to be, you know, it's just in my DNA and it's exactly what Inga said. I think theater, the community that we have, it's the definition of it. You know, it can be in our perfect world, the very definition of the world and what we can offer.
I love that.
Hey, I love
Maija, would you like to add anything?
I was just saying, I love how you that you would say Ubuntu to enter into dialogue or enter into communion with someone, almost as like, let me build a bridge. I am because we are. I came to it in the concept of Ubuntu in college. I was studying global peace studies. I never meant to have a career in theater. I was always an artist, but I wanted to be an international diplomat. And so I was studying the lives of, you know, Nelson Mandela. And I actually learned about from these.
We're freezing.
Yeah, Maija, you're freezing up a little bit.
Am I going in?
Yeah.
You're freezing up a little bit. You started to say that you actually learned about it from, and then it froze.
No.
Hang on. Oh,
She's gonna be rebooting.
yeah. Hopefully she'll be able to come back. Let's go on to the next phase of this, which is I'm curious. As a theater community, because I think all of us are very sensitive to this is our work and this is our lives. And we were just talking before we came on air about how so much of what we're doing is virtual now and if and when it will come back. Is there anything, thinking about, you know, those of us listening to this, being members of this community, is there anything that the philosophy of Ubuntu would offer us as a theater community in terms of our approach to getting through this pandemic and how to move past it eventually? Right now, casting directors are having auditions virtually where we're having them. As I said, much of what we're doing is through offers of people we know, and we're watching showcases virtually, and we are, where auditions are required, we're doing them in a virtual format, and it's a learning curve for everybody. You know, there's lots of actors out there who are not so well versed in the specifics of it. So I'm just wondering about that. Before I move that question forward, Maija, can you pick up where you left off?
Yeah, I was okay. I'm in a new place. Hopefully this is better.
Okay.
I learned about Ubuntu from some professors in college, and also from Angela Davis, who I heard speak in San Francisco when I was out there going to school. And I was studying global peace studies, and so learning about the Peace and Reconciliation Committee and all of the work of Nelson Mandela. That's where that concept first came to my life. But really, I found the concept of Ubuntu very much alive in the spirit of the African dance community, the way that that you are in conversation constantly with the drum, that you are in conversation constantly within a circle. And I also find it very much alive in jazz music, in the way that there's this steady stream that is like the we are, and that everybody kind of riffs on top of it. And so I think the concept for me, as I was really thinking about it, like where does it resonate in my body? It's music and dance and in the rituals that we share when we come together. But just thinking to kind of bump ahead to the question that you were bringing up, Arnold, that's what I miss right now the most. That's what I'm craving and aching for, is this Ubuntu. So I appreciate this opportunity to share in this exercise with you all.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that's so beautifully put. I could feel that as you were describing it. Yeah. So just to go a little further, in terms of like as a theater community, some of us are hurting. It's hard. It's been hard to have this grateful, ready, open, willing group, because sometimes there are things that people really need to hear, and sometimes I get shut off with a little bit of like, and I've had this my whole life. People saying, "Oh, Arnold, you're so Pollyanna," and I just say, Pollyanna had a very good life. Like, I make no apologies for that. I'm good with that. But also I recognize that, for some people right now, it's really hard. I know people who've gone to the Actors Fund, and, it's like they're so overwhelmed right now trying to take care of an entire community, an entire industry out of work, that it's become like, well, unless you have your eviction notice, we're not able to help you because we have so many people ahead of you with eviction notices. I mean, it's to that degree. So I just wonder, is there anything in this that you all would be able to offer to some members of our community who may be struggling right now because of the pandemic and just not knowing when work will come back, or if it will ever come back as we knew it?
I would say that that's a very tricky one, because there's a practical side of it, with the reality, that all those realities that you just spoke of. And then there's the spiritual undergrowth of it, that is consistent. And I think the one advantage that we can look at from being theater people in this new medium, how I approach it, is that I call back on memories. There's another African word I work with. It's called sankofa, and it means go back and fetch it. And so you can always go back and looking backwards, and it's a wonderful imagery. That the images of a bird, a mystical bird, when the feet are going forward and the head is going back. So you go back and fetch everything that you want, and you bring it forward. So it's not going back to live in the past; it's just to bring it forward. And I think we all have such memories that we have to call on all the time. Like I'm just seeing Inga here, and I'm going, okay, the first time I met her, I lit up.
She does that, doesn't she? She does that.
You have to call on those moments.
Now I have to fan myself.
But there's small moments, small little moments that can add sparks. And the more little sparks you can hit, it's not being Pollyanna, it's not being naive, it's being real. Like we have memories that are in our DNA, and that's part of our joy. That's the one thing that theater people have. We have great memory, and we have recall physically. We heard drums, we move, so I think it's those moments there's some practical things that we cannot fix, but there are little things we can do. Just saying hi to somebody on Facebook that you haven't seen for years, or another media, or saying good luck on the audition, just really, I got a call, and it means so much now, it means so much now just to say hi. And I think there's great power in that, just reaching out and saying, I haven't seen you. Oh, the reunions, reunions from shows. Look at that, look at what can happen, So I think Ubuntu, it means that, it really means community, and finding ways to find how you fit in that group of people And if someone's struggling, I struggle with you. You know, I struggle with you. I can't practically do anything with you, but I struggle with you. It makes them feel a little bit of comfort. And I think we can do that.
Yeah, I think jumping on top of what Tomé was saying, you know, this pandemic has really forced us to isolate. And because of that, sometimes we as individuals, we may not reach out to somebody or to an organization or a group of friends or whoever, because we don't feel that we can. And I think as far as Ubuntu is concerned, we have to take it upon ourselves, meaning me, I have to take it upon myself to try and reach out to someone I may not have spoken with in the last month or two. And if that's through Facebook or a text message or calling them or emailing them, whatever that may be, because we have to figure out how we can still remain connected with one another. And especially because we're artists, and we're going through this period of, you know, nobody's working and we don't know, you know, how are we going to pay the rent next month? How are we going to buy food? How are we going to, you know, we have to be able to share information in terms of what resources are out there for everybody to tap into, in terms of making sure a roof remains over your head. There's food on the table. The bills are getting paid. And whoever that may be, if it's through the Actors Fund or the Episcopal Actors Guild or the SAG Foundation, you know, whatever that may be, we have to share that information. Or if it's just, you know, if I have a little bit extra this week and I can go to the store and pick up some food, you know, so you have dinner tonight. Or I made chicken chili, you know, a couple days ago, and I gave a couple bowls of it to some friends of mine in the building. You know, it's just like stuff like that. That's what we do in order to support one another. And that's what we have to continue to do. And, you know, there's no other way around it really at this point, because of how we are being forced to live right now.
It's so valuable and such a great reminder. Thank you, Inga. I mean, my partner and I do that all the time, but it's just, sometimes it's something that when we're in our own pain and our own stuff and feeling scared or hopeless or terrified or just very confused, like this week, you know, those things can sort of fall out as a priority. And we have to remember that those are the priority, because that's how we define ourselves, or can choose, or may choose to define ourselves. Maija, do you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I had a neighbor bring me a bowl of soup out of the blue yesterday. So I feel that full circle, that I've been the recipient of that kind of care and love of a neighbor. And it's so amazing, because I think this, you know, this global pandemic has really situated us with this renewed sense of a world view. Like we are really all in this boat together. Like we are really going through an epic struggle not as a nation, just per se, yes, as a nation, but also just as humans, you know, it's dropped us into our very humanity. And I think that the gifts of that are the sense of belonging to the human condition, you know, and also belonging to our community. Because I mean, I've met neighbors in a way that I don't think I would have ever met my neighbors. You know, being quarantined and walking outside more and meeting people in my immediate the immediate circumstance, not just the people I work with at the theater or my students. And I see them and I connect with them too. But you know, so I'll add to this just something that a student called me right before this. Maija, I have this my world premiere is tomorrow. He's an undergraduate student, Nigerian actor, really powerful. He said, my world premiere of my second play is tomorrow, and tonight is the dress run, and you've been such an amazing mentor, and I just wanted to invite you. And I'm like, when is it? He's like, in an hour. I can't be there. I've got this other thing. But he said, you know what he said to me? He said, you know, what's amazing about this is that it's my second world premiere in 6 months. You know, I never would have even started writing had this pandemic not hit. And he said, and now I'm writing these plays, and I've built this community with people inside of Minneapolis and all over the country, and all over the world. He's from Nigeria, so he's got this whole contingency. And he said, and we're raising money for one of my fellow students who's having financial trouble and needs to stay in the program. So he's raised $6,000 for her to stay in this actor training program through writing plays and doing these world premieres online. So that's just I share that because it's just inspiring to see what people are doing in this moment, using their creative resources to be generous.
Sounds like Ubuntu to me.
Yeah. It's not about his it's less about what he's achieving as an artist. I mean, that's there, but he's doing it with and for others.
What he's able to give with his work. Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. So let's go to the next level of it that I think would be good to talk about right now, which is our nation. So our nation, the past few years, maybe it's not a shining example to the world of national philosophy of Ubuntu. And we have this election going on right now. And, it's funny because I created Grateful, Ready, Open, Willing because the pandemic gave me the gift of the time to do it. I've always wanted to do this, but I'm a casting director and we just work around the clock. So there's just no time to try a new project. And this the opportunity was afforded me, and I just am so grateful for that time. So here we are. But anybody who knows me personally and sees on Facebook how I argue with the Republicans I went to high school with would be like, Grateful, Ready, Open, Willing, my butt. Like what how you talk to people. But I'm armed with a lot of facts because I'm a bit of a news junkie, and I can't stand the things I see that are not true. And we're artists, we're always searching for truth. And I wonder about that. My partner's always reminding me, he's like, that's not a particularly Ubuntu thing. It's not even nice what the things you say and that people see that you write. And I'm like, but it's not okay. It's not okay to post things that are complete untruths, complete propaganda. If Breitbart is your news source and your entire Facebook feed is just that, then I'm going to speak up. I'm going to speak up for people maybe who don't know you or who don't have a chance to respond. And sometimes I feel like I'm doing it wrong, and I just wonder, how do we, okay, so whoever wins this election, which we expect to know in a day or a few days or a month or a few years or something, but whoever our new president is, see there, I said it, whatever happens, this country is very divided right now. And somehow or other, we're going to have to figure out a way to move forward together. And that's one of the main reasons that this concept of Ubuntu struck me so intensely, is because I thought that's probably it. And I just wonder if any of you have some wisdom to offer about how we might move forward with people we so intensely disagree with, or in some cases, people who maybe aren't too respectful or protective of our rights that may be fragile for some of us in marginalized groups. And how do we, as a nation, is there a way to apply this to go forward together?
I think the very concept of I am because we are, that is the key to it, and people do not like to be made wrong. That's the first thing, so we have to come to an equal conversation level where we not hear each other, but really understand and be open to listening to. And that's challenging, when you come up against walls that way. And that's where I kind of throw with the other word, Sankofa, and go back and fetch it, and so I've run into the same kind of resistance, Arnold. And so I tend to go with something that they know. I extend myself that way into the world. And so we had the big phrase of make America great again. So that means go back and get it, right? So we're going to go back, so I can use the word again, so let's go there, so what was again, So then I go to what they say. So I put it all in them. I open the conversation. What was great then for you? So then a sense of community with Ubuntu that may not have been great for everybody else. Your great may not have been great for everyone else. And that's what we're trying to make here as a community. And so I think once we get to that understanding, I don't try and make them wrong. I just try and help us get to the same place. Then we can have a conversation about it, as opposed to me making them wrong and them making me wrong, et cetera. It really doesn't go anywhere. But I use what they know. So that was the stance that he ran on, so I'm going to use what they really believe in. So I'm going to believe you. I'm going to give them that. I'm going to believe you. So that'll explain what the again was. And then we can come in. And then I can open the door for Ubuntu because it's about community. I am who you are. So if you're going to be great, I've got to be great too. So that's only fair. And then it helps it a little.
Tomé, will you hold my hand whenever I'm on Facebook, please?
But it doesn't always work. I mean, there's, there's still some walls, some walls there,
But I think our, as far as the theater community is concerned, I think the fact that we are artists, that is the commonality. We're human beings and we're artists. So that's the commonality. That's the connection between all of us. And hopefully utilizing that connection and look, even though we're doing this virtually, being able to look at someone and look them in the eye and let them know, well, this is how I feel about this. This is how, when we're working on this particular scene or when we're singing this particular song, this is how the lyrics affect me based upon where I'm coming from. And I want to share this with you. And hopefully the person that I'm working with or speaking to will be able to hear that and take that in. And then we can have some kind of dialogue. And hopefully whoever is in charge, the director, stage manager, whoever, will be willing to allow us to do this, because I think this is the new place that theater is coming to. This is where theater is going to live now. I don't think, people are going to let things slide any longer. I think people are going to be very forthcoming with how they're feeling. And I'm not saying that, it's not going to be a therapy session. Nobody wants to sit through that necessarily, but it's just a way of letting someone know this is how something affects me because of how I'm living, how my life has been. And I need to tell you this. You need to be made aware of this. And hopefully you can build on that and keep moving forward.
I love that.
That's so real. That sense of personal testimony, the safe space that needs to be created in order to allow for that. What's required is that we and what's happening, we're holding our public institutions, our theaters, our academia, we're holding their feet to the fire right now and saying these systems of oppression and these over long and overdue changes that need of dismantling white supremacy in all aspects of the way that we work. We are holding these institutions' feet to the fire right now, and that's the gift I think that's coming out of this moment of sort of this reckoning for racial equity, and it's difficult. And as we're looking at the election, I think, like, Tomé, you made me think about what were the guys with the tiki torches?
Yeah. Charlottesville.
In Charlottesville, you will not replace us, right?
Yes.
Well, there's vulnerability there, right? So what do we have in common? Arnold mentioned, like, marginalized communities that have experienced oppression in many forms. What do we have in common with these polos and khaki wearing, tiki torch carrying white boys who feel vulnerable that their place may be taken? So what do we have in common? There's a sense of vulnerability and a sense of there's a a search for dignity, I think, in that. So how do we build that bridge? I don't know. Arnold, I'm going to need Tomé to hold my hand too, but the sense, but it's also up to white folks to dismantle white supremacy. And I think that that's something that, I'm a mixed race person. I'm Cuban American and white. And so I always dip in these worlds, and I feel this kind of new sense of responsibility in the white privilege that I carry to say, what is my part? How do I, we see it in the front lines in Minneapolis, all these beautiful white folks standing in front of Black folks saying, we are going to be the front line here in the fight for racial equity. And I think that we're seeing a lot of real interesting shifts, especially in the younger generation. So yeah, I just went all over the place with that, but there's a lot of work to do. And
I think another, I think if we use the word Ubuntu and explain it to people, just use it like we did when we were kids. Just put it up there. If they don't know what it is, it just halts a conversation, and you can at least explain that. What I try to do sometimes when I run into that with a systemic racism kind of issue, and I know I'm running up against Ubuntu. Well, I use Ubuntu, and then I let them know, here comes a judgment. I say it to them. Here comes the preconceived judgment. But I've used Ubuntu before it. And then they go, what's that? I'm going to try. It's going to presume my judgment of what I think about the situation and who you are and what the damage you're doing. If you're erasing my culture, if you're erasing me as a person, if you're causing harm to another person in the room, if there's inequity going on, I'm going to call it, but I'm going to call it Ubuntu first, and then the mystery is there. And then I can open the door with it. I use it like a weapon, but because it is a good explanation of what it is. And you tell them, I am who you are. Right now, you're acting a certain way. So I'm becoming that energy. I'm becoming that. And I don't want to be that. So let's bring it on an equal level.
Right.
Yeah, find that common ground first.
That's awesome.
But I think, Maija, you brought up a good point. I think it's so important to have that safe space. And I'm bringing this back to the theater community, when we're working, having that safe space so you can feel comfortable enough to express these emotions, express these feelings, express what it is you need to say in regard to what it is that you're working on or who you're working with. And I think that safe space has to be set up by the powers that be. And, they have to be willing to support everyone through this whole thing, And that's so important.
And with that, Inga, that those people that are setting this up have to understand that even though it may be uncomfortable, the conversation of what it's still in the pursuit of being comfortable.
Right. Exactly.
That's a hard thing for people to get, but it's true.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So let's just close by expanding it one more concentric circle into the world. So, the U.S. has pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord, and climate change is affecting the whole planet. The U.S. is the leader in COVID cases and COVID deaths. I think we lead in as well. And this pandemic is affecting the whole world. Some of the scariest parts of it is as it gets into India and the third world. I've been watching the statistics of the number of hospitals per number of people in different countries. And I don't remember the exact numbers, but if the US has, one hospital per 10,000 people or something like that, India has like one hospital per 3 million people. So like which is why in the Spanish flu, so many deaths happen there. So, we are dealing with some world problems that are part of our day-to-day life in ways that I think, I don't know, maybe I blissfully survived my youth just unaware of these things. Look, there was no internet. There were 3 channels on television. It was a different world, but I just wonder is this a concept that we in our individual place and time, perhaps somewhat quarantined or working virtually, can bring into the world? Any thoughts?
I think we do that by, wearing our masks. We do that by staying safe. We do that by not, even though it's hard, and I miss hugging people. I miss that kind of contact. But we do that by not gathering in huge groups. These are the little steps that we take in order to do that. And then on the bigger page, I think whoever becomes our next president, they need to be working on some sort of vaccine 24/7. I mean, literally. That's where funding needs to go. They have to work on a vaccine, one that can be sent out not just to everyone here in the US, but the entire world. And it has to be either free or affordable. Those are the things that need to be taken care of.
I agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Also in this self-care sensibility, I think, and this that's what's come up for me a lot. And what I'm trying to share with my students. It's like, well, what can we do right now? We can ground so deeply in the, it's like when I think of Ubuntu, it's almost like it's where our roots underneath us, where it's like where all of our ancestors meet, it's in this sense of like the root beneath all of our tree is connected to the roots beneath all of it. So that sense of connection, and really, I mean, we need those grounding practices. We need our meditation practices, our breath practices, our singing, our movement, like whatever it is that roots us and grounds us and gives us charge and gives us a sense of aliveness. Like we need that. And there's so many ways to do it, but whatever your way is, right? Spread that out and share that with others. And I think that's a gift we can give right now.
I agree. I think that tying that all together, we as artists have an obligation to the world to never give up, to just never give up, and keep cranking out whatever it is that's your special sauce, that you bring to the ingredient of mankind. Whatever that is. And there's nothing too small, nothing too big. It's just equal value. Everything builds, you have gifts that I don't have gifts. I can't change a tire. That's a gift, because I may be stranded on the side of the road, and and I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop. I'm that person that will stop, it's just simple things like helping your neighbor that's a senior citizen, just checking in on them. You may not be able to do anything, but just checking in on them lets them know I'm alive, I'm here, and I think, those little small things that we do, that we take for granted when we're in our past little normal lives, whatever that was, they everything is magnified, like Inga said, and Maija's saying here, it's just so important. Just the small things are huge.
And continue to create, music, art, plays, short stories, poetry, choreography, dancing, whatever that is, just continue to create,
journal.
As best you can.
Your journal,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Just wonderful. Thank you all so much. I so appreciate your time. We were aiming for a half hour. We'd allowed an hour in case it sped over, and we're just coming toward 40 minutes. And I think this is a great place to conclude. I hope that everyone out there got a little bit of awakening and enlightenment out of this in terms of this concept and how we might be able to apply it. Inga Ballard, Tomé Cousin, Maija Garcia, you remain three of my most favorite people in the world, and I am so grateful for your time. For those who are watching either live or on replay, please do feel free to contribute to the Actors Fund or Broadway Cares, or just if if a neighbor would be happy to receive some soup, that would be a nice thing to do too. And feel free to pay it forward in that way. And I look forward to seeing everyone on the next Grateful, Ready, Open, Willing event that comes up. And I wish everybody well and peace and compassionate and joyful journey through these uncertain but kind of magical and amazing times of growth. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Arnold.
Bye.
Pleasure.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Blessings.